friends, so today we're going to be making a really easy one-pot roasted red pepper pasta. The original recipe for this calls for a jar of roasted red peppers, but I'm just going to roast some red peppers in the oven. So first step to making this pasta is to get these red peppers roasted. So in order to do that, I'm going to cut them open, cut them in half, and de-seed and cut the membranes out. And then after we cut them, we're just gonna place them on a baking sheet. I have preheated my oven to 500 degrees. We're gonna place them the cut side down, skin side up, and we're just gonna let them essentially broil. If you have a gas range, you can also hold them with a set of tongs over the gas flame and get this same result. What we're looking for is almost a black char to the skin, and so that the peppers collapse. And then once we achieve that, we're gonna pull them out, let them cool, and we're gonna peel the skin off. These are actually really small peppers, so I might grab an extra one. I've got an already half cut one. So I'm just gonna add this one to make sure we get sufficient flavors from our peppers, because it is called roasted red pepper pasta. And I have this extra one to use up. Okay, so we are gonna transfer these to the baking sheet, cut side down. Make sure that the stickers are off. That would not have been good. Okay. These are gonna go in the oven. Keep an eye on them because you wanna make sure that they don't obviously completely burn. And as soon as they look ready, you can pull them out. I'm just gonna pop them in. Set a timer for about 10 or 15 minutes, probably err on the 10 side, just so that you don't forget to check on them. Okay, so now that our red peppers are in the oven, staring at some onions. Now that they're in the oven, I'm going to prep the rest of our veggies. So the recipe calls for one medium onion. I didn't have one, I have 2 small onions. So that's what I'm cutting up. And then my favorite, some garlic. If I'm feeling too lazy to cut up garlic, I just usually sub it with garlic powder. Really depends on my mood for the day and how much time I have. This is a great recipe for after work because it is one pot, our favorites. You can just dump everything in. The heaviest lifting that you have to do is roasting the red peppers. And if you don't want to do that, or you don't have access to fresh red peppers, you can buy a jar of roasted red peppers and add those. So we're just gonna cut our onions. I actually was supposed to cut my onions nice and thin, but I forgot to do that and I diced them. So we're getting diced onions in this today. That's fine too. It's more of a texture thing than anything else. And when you thinly slice the onion, it kind of has a similar texture to the pasta and it looks pretty. But today we're going with a dice. So this recipe calls for cream cheese to make a nice creamy sauce. Now, you can use a cream cheese. You can also leave the cream cheese out entirely if you are dairy-free. Or you can use a dairy-free alternative. So a dairy-free alternative would look like dairy-free yogurt, although that might be a little sour, a little bit like sour creamy. Still could be good though. You can use dairy-free cream cheese. They have those. You can probably get it at Superstore or one of our other local shops around here. I am going to be making the recipe dairy-free today because my family has a dairy allergy. And I'm going to make a cashew cream, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's super easy and super fast. If you have a nut allergy, this is not the substitute for you. But if you do not have a nut allergy, this is a great substitute dairy when you're making a cream-based sauce. It's so easy to do. If you know you're making this recipe ahead of time and you don't have a high-powered blender, so like a Vitamix or one of those bullets, those usually can chew through cashews pretty well. If you don't have those, you need to soak your cashews in water overnight so that they get really soft. If you don't do that and you try to make this recipe in your regular blender, you'll end up with something that's more like the consistency of ricotta cheese. So you'll have small chunks of cashews. It'll be kind of mealy. And you do want, for this recipe anyways, you want your cashew cream to be really smooth and creamy. And it is a dead ringer. I make cashew cream to sub cream cheese or cream or milk in recipes all the time, and nobody ever knows the difference. So we're getting there with our garlic. So tedious. Probably should invest in a hand chopper or in one of those electrified choppers and just toss my garlic in there. It would make my life a lot easier. I'd probably also use fresh garlic more often. But as we've talked about before, sometimes I'm kind of lazy. Okay, so my garlic's all chopped, my onions are ready to go, my red peppers are smelling delicious. So I'm gonna go check on them and see how they're doing. So our red peppers are getting nice and charred, and you can see here how they've kind of collapsed a little bit. I'm gonna leave them for just a minute or two longer to make sure they're really good and soft, but they're looking almost perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna pull the red peppers out of the oven. They look really good. We're gonna let them cool down for a few minutes so that they're cool to the touch, and then I'm gonna peel the skin off and chop them up. Okay, so my red peppers have cooled down enough to handle. This is what they look like. And I'm just gonna peel off the skin. I've already done some of them here because it is a little bit time consuming. I've heard that if you take the peppers right out of the oven and put them in a paper bag or a Ziploc bag, that the skin comes off super duper easy. But as you can see, I just peeled it right off. I've never had to do that. So just as long as they're cool enough and you've roasted them long enough, the skin should technically just slide right off. You don't want to leave the skin on because it is a little bit tough. So try to make sure you get at least the majority of it off, because you don't want to be gnawing on that with all the nice textures in your pasta. This one's being a little bit difficult. Of course, the last one. Okay, so now we're gonna chop these into just thin, long slices. They're super soft. Okay, so once we are done slicing our red peppers, we're gonna go to the pot and get everything in there and cooking. All right, so now that our veggies are chopped and our roasted red peppers are all ready to go, we have the best part. We can just dump everything in the pot. So we're gonna set our heat to medium while we get everything in there. So onions and garlic. A can of Roasted tomatoes, I'm using fire roasted tomatoes. They're just a little more flavorful, but regular diced tomatoes are fine as well. And you want to pour these in with their juices, straight in the pot. We also need 4 cups of broth. So I've already mixed my bouillon powder into this. Yours will come probably pre-mixed with your spices. So you're gonna wanna add 4 cups of water into here and then your spice mix bag. And then just give it a stir. So this is 1 cup. I'm gonna add 3 more. Okay, 3 cups of water going in. Spice mix, some basil and paprika, and my roasted red peppers. Everything in the pot. Just gonna rinse off my hand here. Now the next step is to take your linguine. It's just regular old linguine. This recipe doesn't work with any kind of healthy pasta. I've only ever had success with a regular pasta. I also have not tried it with a gluten-free pasta. So I can't guarantee successful results. Actually, I should cut this in half for a second. So you're gonna break these in half, and dump them in. Next batch, break them in half, dump them in. Got a few scragglers here. All right, now we want to give that a really good stir to make sure it's combined and also that your noodles are all submerged in the liquid. So, lid goes on. You're gonna turn up your heat to get it to come to a full boil. So we're gonna check on it in just a few minutes, and if it's up at a full boil, we're gonna give it another stir and turn it down just slightly. All right, so we are at a full boil. So I'm going to stir this around and break up any of the pasta that has clumped together. So this might take you a few seconds to get through all of that. Make sure your pasta is nice and loose. Okay, so I've broken up all the pasta, given it a good stir. I'm gonna put the lid back on, turn it down to medium high, and let it cook for about 10 minutes. About halfway through there, I'm gonna poke my head in and see how much liquid is left over, because we do want the liquid to evaporate and also be absorbed by the pasta. We don't want like a really soupy pasta kind of left over. So if it's looking soupy and the pasta is almost done, when you check on it, take the lid off and let it simmer with the lid off, and that should allow some of the liquid to evaporate. So to break that down, I'm gonna check on it in a few minutes, about halfway through the 10 minutes that I want it to cook, and see where the liquid levels are at. Okay, so we're about halfway through and it's pretty liquidy still, as you can probably see. So I'm gonna leave the lid off to let some of this liquid evaporate. The pasta needs probably about 3 to 4 more minutes until it's al dente. I'm gonna check it and see how soft it is. All right, so for my dairy-free friends, I'm gonna show you how to make a very fast cashew sauce. So in our house, we go through tons of cashews, and this jar is normally full. So the way that I justify this is we don't buy dairy, which I find to be really expensive, especially cheese, and we don't buy any meat. So we spend our money on nuts. And luckily we don't have any nut allergies, so it really works for us. So we want to get about a half a cup of cream cheese. Now this cashew sauce is not going to be as thick as cream cheese, so I'm actually going to make a little bit more because I really like creamy sauce. So I'm going to do a heaping cup, half a cup, maybe a little extra of cashews. Okay, so there's no perfect science to this, unfortunately. Well, there is, but I don't follow it. So I just kind of eyeball it. And because I do it all the time, it becomes second nature. I'm also gonna add nutritional yeast. This is what nutritional yeast looks like if you've never seen it. And I buy this in bulk as well. I buy my nuts in bulk and I buy my nutritional yeast in bulk. So I'm gonna add about a 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast, about a 1/2 cup of water. Keep some extra water on standby in case you have to add some to loosen it up. So when you're doing a cashew cream, a little bit of salt too. Lots of things that you can add to it to kind of make the sauce a little more dynamic. I have found that adding a pinch of dill, which is crazy, I know because I hate dill, makes it taste cheesy for some reason. You don't taste like dill, it tastes a little bit cheesier. I also sometimes add miso paste. If you've ever seen miso paste in the grocery store, it has a really nice, really rich umami flavor. It's what they make miso soup out of. And sometimes I'll add some of that in there if I want like a really dense kind of saltiness to it. Miso is also fermented, so it's really good for your gut. Okay, I'm gonna turn this on and blend it, and then I'll show you the consistency. So before I turn this on, just to let you know, I have a high-speed blender. This is a Vitamix. I justify the cost of it because I use it every day in my cooking. So if you don't have a high-speed blender, remember that you have to soak your cashews for 24 hours to make them nice and soft. So you have to plan ahead for your meal planning. Blend that up until you get a very, very creamy consistency. And then I'm just gonna taste it. So good. Doesn't taste like nuts. That's perfect. And it's actually pretty thick, kind of like a heavy cream consistency. If you want it thicker, you can throw some more nuts in, but I think it's perfect just the way it is. I'm gonna bring it over to my pasta, which is ready. Okay, so it really was a great idea for me to take the lid off about halfway through. My pasta is perfect. There's a perfect amount of sauce. It smells amazing. Just gonna give it a quick stir to get anything that's stuck on the bottom. I'm so excited to eat this. Okay, so now is when you're gonna break up your cream cheese and toss it in. I am gonna toss in my cashew cream. You could also literally just eat it the way it is. You do not need to make it creamy. It's so yummy. Make sure you get your spatula out so you get every last bit of cashew cream. So the benefits of using a cashew cream here or adding a cream cheese is we're adding protein to our meal. You can also, if you want, supplement this with chicken or your meat of choice. I'm gonna use the nuts as my protein source. And then this would be really lovely, served with a side salad. You could also hide veggies in here or add veggies. Broccoli would be great. Zucchini would be really great. All right, we're gonna give this a stir. Just looks so luscious, so delicious. The pasta is perfectly al dente, so it's got a little bit of a bite to it. It's not mushy at all. Remember that the pasta is hot, so it will keep cooking. So the best way to get that perfect pasta is to stop when it's still got a bit of a bite to it. How delicious does that look? Super creamy. All right, so our pasta is ready to serve. Hope you enjoy.